Assalamualaikum and good morning, everyone. Welcome to our 7th Cemerlang Kopi series, Scholarship and Interview Tips by Successful Scholarship Applicants. My name is Naylee Izzati, Kaiser of Batch 2019 and your moderator for today. Thank you for joining us and for taking your time. I hope that everyone is staying safe and taking care of their health at home, especially since they've just announced on the news that there is going to be an implementation of a total lockdown again. But that aside, I would love to share with you our news, which is that Cemerlang has recently moved to Telegram. So if you haven't yet, do subscribe at t.me/cemerlang.org, or you may refer the link to at our comment section on YouTube Live, or even in our Zoom chat box. There, you can avoid missing out on more informative forums like this, career tips, life tips, and even inspiring stories from leaders at the top of that line. All right, now let's shift our focus to the real reason why everyone is here today. With SPM results around the corner, we understand how the scholarship application can be scary or even paralyzing to some. But don't worry, if you're listening to this webinar today, then we've got you covered, because our main objective is to help students all over Malaysia become more informed on the nuts and bolts of applying for scholarships, as well as to help students master the application process during the new normal, whereby interviews, case studies, and even tests will be most likely held online. Now, joining me are four outstanding and brilliant speakers. They're here to share their experience and tips that could help you when it's your turn to apply. So let's get to know them. First up, we have Meisha Lukman, a JPA scholar and former head girl of KYS. She is currently studying in KYUEM, and she had attended interviews with JPA as well as Yayasan Khazanah. She enjoys tending to plants and watches history documentaries for fun.
Hi, everyone.
Next, we have Atiyah. She's a Yayasan Khazanah scholar and former head of internationalization of her previous institution, Sekolah Sri Putri, or SSP. She is currently studying in KYUEM and had attended interviews with Petronas, Yayasan Khazanah, as well as JPA. She loves outdoor photography and is a big fan of How I Met Your Mother.
Hi everyone, good morning.
Now, let's introduce Azzuhri Azman. He is a Petronas scholar and former assistant secretary of KYS. Currently, he is studying in UOW Malaysia KDU and had attended interviews with JPA, Petronas, and MNRB. He says he spends most of his free time playing games and sports, as well as watching the NFL.
Hi guys.
Last but not least, we have Izzati Zahira, a Bank Negara scholar and former PRS secretary of MRSM TGB. She is currently studying in KTJ and had attended interviews with GPA Mara, Petronas, as well as Bank Negara. She is the biggest Pyramli fan and is currently thinking about going vegan.
Hi guys, nice to meet you guys.
It's so good to have all of you here. Thank you for all the hours that you've put in to make today happen. Personally, I'm super excited for all of the amazing conversations that we're about to have. But before we go into the first question, do keep in mind that the Q&A session will be held at the end of this webinar. So you can write down your questions in the meantime in the comment section on our YouTube Live or in the Zoom Q&A box. Now, let's dive into our first topic on personal statements. So surprisingly, not all sponsoring bodies require their candidates to write personal statements. But of course, there are still some that ask you to do so. Luckily, we have scholars here that have experience writing them for their scholarship applications. So let's ask them how they did it and what is the best approach to writing personal statements. Maybe we can start with Tia.
Hi everyone, my name is Atiyah, but you can call me Tia for short. So before I delve into personal statements, I'd first like to thank all of you for joining us here today. And I'd also like to say massive kudos for you guys for the fact that you guys just endured SPM during a pandemic, which is understandably not the easiest thing to do. So do credit yourself for being able to push through. And we're super excited to share our tips on how we can help you embark on this new chapter in life, which is transitioning towards college, uni, and a scary place called adulthood. But yeah, all right. So before I delve into the specific tips, just a quick information about Yayasan Khazanah. So Yayasan Khazanah, which is a scholarship that I'm under, essentially has 5 stages. But before you even enter the first stage, you will first have to submit an application, and within the application, it involves an essay, also known as the personal statement. So I think that goes to show how important a personal statement is in your overall application, hence why it's important for us to utilize this as a way to showcase your personality and character beyond just bullet points and filling in a table. So among the normal questions that will be asked include what makes you an ideal candidate, what's your intended field of study, and also how you wish to contribute to the nation. So my first step for you in dealing with personal statements is to, number 1, to show and not tell. So in essays, they'll ask you about your passions, your qualities, and the likes of it, right? I recommend explaining this through your stories and experiences rather than explicitly like mentioning them in terms of like adjectives, and basically tell it in a way that can engage with the reader better. So let's say you love basketball, right? So instead of saying just, I have a great passion for basketball, perhaps you could mention how energized you feel when you're at the basketball court with your friends, or the adrenaline rush that you experience when you're shooting the ball through the hoops, right? Or maybe you can even mention how you don't mind the scorching heat of the sun during evening trainings because you just love basketball that much. So notice how in all these 3 things, I'm trying to convey that I like basketball, but just in a different way, right? And it gives off a different effect to the reader. So yeah, that's something that I highly recommend because it's more engaging and it encapsulates your personality better. And also it can help you demonstrate your good characteristics in a more tangible manner for the readers as well. And it's more fun to read. And the second tip that I have for you is to be authentic. So I understand that the post-SPM life is like a soul-searching period in which you have to figure out who you want to be and what you want to do. And this may involve so much confusion. Like I personally had a series of existential crises, which is completely normal. So don't worry if you are going through the same thing. It's normal to be unsure. And don't worry because you'll figure it out as you go along. But the bottom line for personal statements is you want to make sure that your voice comes through, and you want to make sure that the admissions officer can capture the essence of who you are as a person. So just be real and be truthful. Don't overinflate or downplay your achievements, your experiences, or your characteristics. First and foremost, this is the most ethical thing to do. And secondly, it is a strategic thing to do because during my interview, they actually had a copy of my essay at the site. So some of the questions they asked me revolved around what I wrote. So yeah, when you're writing the essay, just make sure that you really are that person that you speak of and you're good to go.
All right. Thank you, Tia. I'm sure that eventually, when students apply for other scholarships, right, they will eventually encounter different prompts and different questions. Like what Tia mentioned, it was more to your passion and what you enjoy doing. So perhaps it'll be better to see it from a different perspective or perhaps a different scholarship body. So Izzati, would you like to share about Negara?
Yeah. Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Izzati. And just before I start, I want to echo what Tia just said. Thank you so much for being here with all of us today. I appreciate you taking the time to actually, expose yourself to what are the scholarships out there. And congratulations for making it through SPM. I know that could have just been, one of the hardest years of your life. So for me, what I would say, first of all, if you're writing an essay for a scholarship, before you dive straight into it, make sure that you research beforehand. Researching what you're going to write about is very, very important, and be clear about what field of study you are going to choose. So what I mean when I say research is because during the Bank Negara application, the prompt was, what are your career aspirations? Why should we give you this scholarship? And what would you like to contribute to the bank and to the nation? So for the career aspirations part, I had no clue at all what I should write because, just finishing SPM, you are so young, you're not even 18 yet. So for them to ask you, what are you going to do 5 to 10 years down the road is quite, hard to answer. So I spent my time after SPM, luckily lah, before application time, after SPM, I researched like what am I going to do in life, and then I had a lot of career options, but I narrowed it down, and then I just like stuck with it through all of the scholarship applications. So for me, in my essay, I wrote that for my career aspirations, I would like to be a chartered accountant one day and hopefully get my certificates. So that's what I mean when when you have to do your research so that you can know what are the opportunities available for your career. Okay, and then for the second tip is to always write about something that you're passionate about. It doesn't matter what you're passionate about connects to your field of study or not, because the most important part is to portray yourself and present to the scholarship body who you are as a person. So I think it is very, very interesting to read from a perspective that you are talking about something that you know well about and you clearly are passionate about. So for example, in my essay, after SPM, I was really, really into volunteering and going to soup kitchens. And then I read about a lot about financial literacy also. So even though volunteering had nothing to do with accounting and all that, but you can always relate your passions and what you like to your field of study. So what I wrote was, when I went volunteering, my observation was that financial literacy is a very life-changing thing that can help them get out of poverty. So I wrote about that in my essay. And yeah, and then lastly, the third tip would be to not make your essay just a sob story. So what I mean by this is I reference some prompts that may ask you to tell them about a hardship that you went through in life and how you overcame it. So the most important thing to remember in these types of questions is to strike a balance between describing what you went through and describing how you overcame it, because you don't want to be too descriptive and you don't want to try too hard to capture like the scholarship body's sympathy. Instead, you really, really want to show them that, oh, you're someone who is capable of rising through what are the hardships in life, and you really want to make it as encouraging as you can, instead of just, you know, like describing, oh, I went through this and I was so sad about it. Don't worry, everyone makes mistakes. And I would really like to share that one of the biggest things I learned during the application process was to strike a balance in your essay. Because I remember I remember answering this exact same prompt for, I think, QEM, and then I got rejected from like the first stage itself because I failed at, like, you know, tackling the question properly, because I wrote too much about personal things and I forgot to like tell them how I overcame it. So yeah, just try your best.
Thank you, Tia and Izzati. It's really interesting now how to see both of you approach personal statements in your own different ways. I hope that clears up a lot of things for the students. Now let's move on to the topic of case studies. Now, some of you may be familiar with it, but some of you may not, because it's not usually taught in schools. But I'm just going to leave it to the scholars to explain more about what it is and how to prepare for it. Zuri, can you share your experience and tips?
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so for introduction, I'm gonna explain to you guys about the flow of the Petronas application. The first thing you need to do is obviously the application itself, but don't worry, there's no personal statement or anything. It's just you filling out your personal information about your mother, father, brother, sister. Yep, I believe that's it. And also your achievements so far and a short CV. After the application process, they will send you an email to take an EQ test. After that test, it's the IQ test. After the IQ test is the case study. So before the case study, there will be a very, very short interview, which is just introduction of yourself. And then they will move to the case study, which is being done in a group. So to those of you guys who are wondering, what is a case study? So generally, a case study is a simulation where the candidates are given real-life scenario or problems and are required to analyze the problem and give advices or suggestion to tackle or solve it. So it's usually going to be a problem that the company, or in this case, the scholarship body, face in a day-to-day basis. So what is my personal experience? I would say it was very awkward, because it was the first time that we did something in a group online. It was very hard. It was like you talking to a screen without getting any response or the reactions, it's kind of hard. Yeah. And I am not the type who actually really prepare for stuff. Don't follow me, it's bad. But yeah, don't follow me, that's all. So for the interview, the situation was like this. We were all very awkward. There's this one guy I remembered. He refused to talk and his camera was just pointing at his forehead. And we were all so weirded out until the panelists had to say like, please fix your camera and everything. It was so awkward. And then in the beginning of the interview or the case study, no one knew what to say and no one knew when to say something, because the panelists will just be like, okay, you have this problem in a group, discuss it. We're going to leave you for 15 to 20 minutes, and then you come back and tell us the solution. And then they'll just off their video, and then they're just going to hear us talk. So I think for the first 2 minutes, no one said anything. We just smiled, and literally no one said anything. So in that situation, someone has to take the lead. And if you are ever in that situation, please do so. It's always the ice-breaking part. It's always going to be the hardest. But after that, it's really going to be smooth sailing from there. Try to engage with your, I would say, partners, because if you get them to engage with you, it's going to be a really fun process and it's not going to be that stressful. So the best way to approach this case study, I believe the first one is be confident. They don't want a very shy person who doesn't talk, obviously. And really, just make sure you don't have any technical problems, like that guy who actually pointed his camera, I don't know where. Fix your mic, definitely. Be at a good place, with no one like your father or mother like walking around, your cats playing on your computer or anything. It's very, very unprofessional. Please avoid that. And also talk like you mean it. You can't talk like you're hesitating to say it. Like, avoid that. Just when you talk, be confident. Even though you are unsure about your point, just talk like you think it is true. That's the first one. The second one is do not be too dominant. Speak when it matters. What's important is that your points are relevant to the discussion. It doesn't matter if you speak a lot, but in the end, it's all nothing, no input to the question itself. The third one is try and come together as a group. That's the most important thing, because case study is all about team building and they want to see how good you are to work in a group, because eventually they're going to employ you. So they want to see how well you are going to be with them and how you are well suited with the environment. A sudden change in environment shouldn't startle you, shouldn't make you feel nervous or anything. Instead, take it as a challenge and also a situation where you need to step up and bring up your A game. Okay. And then the last one is be a good leader. Obviously, everyone wants to, when I talk about this, everyone obviously have in their mind, I need to be the leader, I need to take in charge to a certain point. Yes, you can be a leader to a certain point. Do not be too, like I said, too dominant. Just a good leader is one that includes other people. For example, in my group, there is this one girl who did not actually have the chance to speak, because everyone wanted to speak when everyone had the chance. So I would not say me being a good leader, but kind of a good leader. So I asked that person, well, what do you think? Yeah, something like that. That's what they want to see, because eventually, don't treat them as competition. Treat them as the person that you want to get your scholarship with, because you already know them, you already get to understand them, the way they speak, the way they act and everything. So it's really good if you have in your mind that mindset. And then for lastly, how to prepare. As for me, don't leak this information, yeah, but I read out previous blog spots of people. I think it was some girl named Mardia, which is an ex-Petronas scholar. She went to the Petronas Young Stars Day, PYD, if you guys wonder what it is called. So she told me, no, she read on the blog spot and she write it that the question asked was, how would you redesign the mesra at the petrol station? And to my surprise, that was the exact question that came out in my case study. So it was really a breeze for me, and thank God, because I didn't really prepare at all. You know, my mom kept on giving me like things that I need to read up on, but that time it was pandemic time, and you know, yeah. So really, read out all the blog spots that you have and try asking your seniors or your contacts about what were their question, because I believe sometimes it's going to be the same. The second one is read out on the current issues and how it relates to Petronas. For example, right now we have the pandemic situation. How do you think it affects the oil and gas industry? And what do you think Petronas is doing to actually overcome this problem? What direction is the company headed to? What are their specific plan for the future to actually reduce this blow on them during this pandemic? That's the first one. The second one is you can read about IR 4.0, very, very important thing. Everything relates to IR 4.0, and also Society 5.0. You can read that up, or if you, it's two different things. If you guys want to know IR 4.0 and Society 5.0, just read it out. It's going to be very useful. And then what is the expectation for the future? For example, for the oil and gas industry, we all know that it is not sustainable. It is a sunset industry. So what are the substitute to that? Maybe electric energy or renewable energy, yeah, something like that. So I think that concludes the case study. If you don't know, you can read out. There are a lot of people who actually explains how their case study went with Petronas. Yeah. Hope it helps.
Thanks, Zuri. It explains a lot, and I'm sure that they're really glad to have you here. Just a gentle reminder to those who want to ask questions or aren't clear on some bits of what the scholars here have shared, please don't hesitate to write your questions in our comment section on our YouTube live or even in the Zoom Q&A box. Now, I'm pretty sure that must have been really challenging to do online. But moving on, let's talk about interviews. Almost all scholarships have the interview stage. And since all of the scholars that we have here today have gone through this, how about we take a look at how interviews are conducted for different sponsoring bodies? How about we start off with Meisha under JPA?
Right, thank you, Naylee. Hi, guys. Pleasure to meet all of you. I'm Meisha, a JPA scholar. So essentially everything that I'll be talking about in regards to this question mainly relates to most, if not all, government scholarships. So I'm referring to JPA, JPA Mara, and Mara. But before that, just a disclaimer that this is merely guidance. So I hope you guys don't take it literally or be too intimidated by the advice we're giving. This is merely, we're just telling you guys what worked for us and we hope it works for you as well, right? Okay, so about JPA, the process is quite simple. Firstly, you just have to take a personality test along with your application of basic questions. They're like asking you, adakah anda seorang yang pemarah? Basic stuff like that, you know what I mean? Just be honest. I don't think you can lie about questions like that. There's not really an IQ test. Then if you pass a personality test, I don't know how you can pass, but yeah, then you move on straight to the interview. So usually for government scholarships, you can apply for more than one. So you can apply for JPA, JPA Mara, and Mara, but only one main interview will be conducted. So which scholarship you get will be decided on your performance in that one group interview. Sorry. So the interview is usually conducted in a group. Don't ask me how many people, because it really does vary. Fun fact, me and Tia were in the same group. There's about 7 people, a bunch of people, but then another friend of mine got only 3. So it really does vary. So it'll be done in 2 parts, where one, you'll be questioned individually. So I'll just dive into that one first. So mainly, even though there's like 7 of you there, they'll give you names like Calon 1, Calon 2, whatsoever. Then they'll ask you questions directly to each and every one of you. And even that point, it varies because sometimes they'll ask this person like a bunch of questions and they just ask you no questions at all. that was the case for me. They didn't ask me any questions, and I was like stunned, just waiting there, listening to other people talk. But that's fine. Okay. The first question that they normally ask is about introducing yourself, a very basic question, but people usually overlook it. They really don't care where you come from and whatsoever, your mother, father story, because that's already in your application. So make sure you prepare beforehand that question, what you want to highlight about yourself. Maybe your life motto or the achievements that you've had. Don't list them down, but merely pick the ones that you find will really, show your true capabilities that you want to show to the interviewer, right? All right, then they'll ask you questions. I find that JPA is mainly more about, they ask questions mainly about the field of your study. So they'll prompt a lot on why you want to pursue it, what you can contribute. And this is where your knowledge on current issues comes handy. Because, for example, you're planning to pursue computer science. Then they'll ask something about, AI or cryptocurrency, what you think about it, blah, blah, blah. So you should be prepared for those kind of questions. A little tip, not really a tip, but make sure that you know what you're talking about. Sometimes when you're nervous, you tend to just blurt out anything. And that's the thing, because usually interviewers pick up on what you're saying, then they'll ask follow-up questions. So if you're not really sure about what you're saying, if you're not confident about saying it, just don't say it, because they're going to ask you some more. You're going to be stuck. And that's embarrassing, right? So also JPA questions are mainly Malaysia-centric, as I mentioned. So it's always about, what can you contribute to Malaysia? Or a random question, what is your favorite buku negara? Stuff like that, usual patriotic stuff. Then the second part of the interview is a group discussion. Not really a case study per se, but they just ask you in a group like, what are the advantages or disadvantages of the MCO? So they ask you to discuss. As Azzuhri has mentioned, it is extremely awkward because you don't know who these people are. You've just met them for like the past 30 minutes and it's online. So you tend to interrupt each other. So it's really awkward. But then once you, like Azzuhri said, once you get past that phase, it's practically okay from there on. I think in order for you to shine in this part, not shine per se, but, stand out, is give quality answers. Think about your answer properly, because sometimes you don't have enough time, especially if your group is large. You don't have enough time to, give a lot of points. So make sure that you elaborate properly, because most likely that only one time you'll be able to speak is the only time you'll be able to speak, right? So about a bit on my personal experience during the JPA interview. One, there were a lot of hiccups. Mainly it started 45 minutes late. So at first I thought it was a me problem, being scared, internet connection is the usual. Then suddenly you might get an email at 1 o'clock in the morning telling you that your interview is postponed or it's brought forward. So always check your email. JPA or Petronas, just check your email all the time, because these people, they like to email you at weird hours of the day, right? Again, like Zuri mentioned, Wi-Fi is extremely important in your environment, because there's this one girl in our group who I think that she had a lot of good things to say, but because of her bad internet connection, the interviewers got a bit annoyed. So they breezed through all her answers and wanted to push through the interview. So it's kind of sad that you can't be able to show your true self because of circumstances, right? And especially if you're in a group interview, be as patient as possible, because our interview lasted about an hour plus. There's 7 of us. They asked a lot of questions, and we should go toilet breaks because you will be so bored and so tired. So yeah, be patient as possible. And for government-based scholarships, you should be comfortable, better fluent in both Malay and English, because sometimes if they find that you're speaking too much in one language, they'll be like, boleh tak awak cakap bahasa Melayu? So if you're not fluent, it's fine, but at least be able to convey your ideas in a way that everyone can understand. All right. And lastly, about my experience would be really random questions. Like a random question that me and Tia got was, sekiranya anda sebuah kereta, kereta apakah anda? So at that moment, everyone's like, what? And they ask you on the spot. All right. So be prepared to answer this kind of questions. Don't be rude and laugh like, what kind of question is that? No, because every question that they ask, there is a reason for it. So maybe for that question is to see how you view yourself as a car or whatever. So, be prepared for this kind of questions. Be prepared. That's all. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you, Michelle. I didn't know it was gonna be like that. But how about we hear from a different scholar on a different sponsoring body? Can we have Izzati? I heard Bank Negara's interview is one of the toughest.
Okay, so for the Bank Negara process, first we had to apply, of course, and then send in our essays. And then after that, we received an email inviting us to go to this Kijang Academy. So in this Kijang Academy, they ask us to do a EQ test, and then they ask us to submit a video. So the video, the prompts change throughout the years. Previous years, they didn't ask for the applicants to submit in a video, but due to the pandemic and everything going online, they just asked us to submit in a video. And then after you pass all of that, you're going to have 3 interviews in total. So 2 is group interviews, 2 of them are group interviews, and then another one, the last one is an individual interview. So for the group interviews, the first one, usually they would set you up in a group and then they give you something random like, oh, please interpret this picture for it, something like that. It's quite abstract and it changes every year. So the most important thing that you have to remember during this part is to respect every one of the applicants going through the interview with you. And just as what Zuri has mentioned, you are all in this together. So don't be too dominant. Don't try to cut people off, be welcoming to other people's perspectives and ideas. Because I think the main purpose of why they ask you to interpret something is to just see how you handle people having different perspectives and, disagreeing with you. And then the second part was we had a case study. So, the bank is a financial institution, obviously. So our case study revolved a lot around business plans and, how environmental concerns relates to a lot of business decisions. And my case study was that they asked me, oh, if you were given the choice, would you produce a lot of plastic containers or would you shift to reusable containers? But they have an extra cost and the demand for it is low. So I had to calculate a few things and then come up with a business plan with my team. Okay, and then it's very awkward, but you know what, it's normal. Just get through the ice-breaking stage, respect each other, and then it'll be just fine. And then thirdly, for the individual interview part, it wasn't heavily academically inclined, unlike other sponsorship bodies. Bank Negara, they value a lot of diversity and they really, really value your sense of self. So for me, I asked around my friends who also got the Bank Negara scholarship, and each one of us, we answered differently, and we are very, very different people. Some of us answered in Malay, some of us answered in English, and it doesn't really matter whether or not you're fluent in English, but this is for Bank Negara. For other sponsorship bodies, I'm positive that you really, really have to be fluent in English for it. And then they asked a lot about personal level questions. So for me, they asked what were the hardships that you faced, and then I just said that SPM year was one of the hardest stages that I went through in life, and I just elaborated on that. And then they are going to ask you again about what you wrote in your essay. I think before you go into the interview, read up on what you wrote, because sometimes you applied and you wrote the essay a month before the interview. That was the case for me. So I already forgot what did I write about. But they asked me again about it. So I had to, just elaborate some more about what I wrote. And then I would say the hardest question was and the hardest and most academically inclined, I would say, was that, do you really believe that financial literacy can eradicate poverty? Because just as I had mentioned before, I wrote about it in my essay. And then I had to oh, okay, can you give me a moment to think about it? And then they were like, oh yeah, sure. So whenever you get nervous or you get stuck, just know that it is completely normal and they don't expect you to be perfect. So just ask, oh, can you give me a moment to think about it? And then I think this is a quite good strategy because it gives you time to breathe, it gives you time to think, and most importantly, it shows that you really care about what they're asking and you really want to provide a good response. And that's really amazing in a two-way people conversation. Okay, and then for general tips, I would say be prepared so you can be calm. So in this sense, I prepared a lot personally. I talked in the mirror, I talked to someone, I even like prepared scripts and I was like, oh, if they ask me this, then I'm gonna answer like this. So, but on the day itself, I kept in mind that, oh, I'm just gonna stay calm. This is just a conversation with someone, a conversation with an adult, and it's nothing to be afraid of. They just want to know who you are, and don't sound too rehearsed. Just be yourself, stay calm, and I think when you calm yourself down, ideas flow more naturally and you can communicate them easier to the panels. And then lastly, I would say be humble. Humility is the best thing that you can bring in a conversation. It doesn't matter whether it's in an interview or in real life. Attend the interview, keeping in mind that, oh, I'm here to learn. So it's okay if it's not perfect. So just, don't be too arrogant, don't be too cocky and like, oh, I read a research paper about this when you did it. Don't lie about anything, okay? Because it's not worth it. They would know exactly if you're lying because they have way more experience than you think. So yeah, just be humble and keep in mind that, oh, this is an opportunity for me to learn. So it's okay if I don't know certain things. It's not an opportunity for me to show that I'm perfect, you know? So yeah, just have fun during the interview.
Thank you, Izzati. How about we ask Tia? You've been to a couple of interviews.
Hello. Okay, so for Yayasan Khazanah, it was more about our personal qualities and our high school experiences. But there are two stages. So the first one was with the scholarship manager, and the second one was with a member of the board of trustees. So for the first interview, they mainly asked me about the roles that I played in my high school, like the clubs that I participated in. And then for the second one, it was more towards a bit on current issues. Like I remember a question about technology playing a larger role in the workforce, and also a little bit on women in leadership positions, which was really interesting. But I would say overall, the interviews, we should treat it as a learning experience as well, because there were other candidates in the room and I learned so much from their perspectives too. And the fact that they're from different parts of Malaysia was also very interesting. And you get to see different insights from different people. And it's just really interesting to see people from different backgrounds sharing their thoughts on a particular issue. Yeah, and the interview is also very friendly and accommodating. So don't be intimidated by the idea of interviews, because once you're in, it can actually be a really fun thing to do. Some general tips that I have for interviews would be to remember to calm down and breathe, because understandably, like the pressure to perform well is immense. But being able to emotionally compose yourself is an important part of acing scholarship applications, because sometimes you may have like amazing ideas to convey, but because of nervousness getting in the way, you might not be able to effectively express your ideas as effectively as you would when there's like less pressure. So find ways to relax yourself first before entering the interview, so you can be fully present in the conversation. For example, like before doing an interview, don't maybe that time don't rehearse in the mirror, don't talk to, like, try to be so rehearsed. It's better to just find something relaxing, just listen to music for a while, and then like when the time comes, then you enter in the interview with a clear mind. And my second tip is to have a strong sense of self. So share something that is unique to you, because we all have something that we're super passionate about, right? So don't be afraid to show your enthusiasm. So during my Yayasan Khazanah interview, I talked about how passionate I was about studying the US. And they really engaged me on that, and they even like told me, shared some information about Ivy Leagues, and they were really like happy to see someone excited about a particular thing. So don't be afraid to tell them what you're enthusiastic about, and gradually the conversation will shift towards that, and you'll have a chance to share your passions with the interviewees. And yeah, be proud of what makes you you, and it's okay to make mistakes. Like even during my interviews, I stuttered. I also had difficulty coming up with quality answers on the spot. These are totally normal. So don't expect to be perfect all the time. It's okay to make mistakes. And yeah, I also agree that humility is really important. So do emphasize on that as well in your interviews.
Thank you, Tia. I'm sure that everyone can take away many, many things from the sharing session just now. But just a reminder, before we continue, if you haven't subscribed yet to Cemerlang, please do so at t.me/cemerlang.org. You may refer the link in our comment section on YouTube Live, or even in the Zoom chat box. you can do so soon to make sure that you're keeping up with all the new intriguing stories, more informative forums like this, exclusive interviews and insights as well. Okay, moving forward, I'm sure everyone is dying to know this question and the answer to it. What do sponsored bodies actually look for in their candidates? Okay, how about we start with Izzati? Do you have any tips?
Yeah, okay. So what is expected of you? Speaking from a Bank Negara scholarship point of view, I think the main thing that they expect from you is like your willingness to learn and your willingness to explore things outside of your syllabus. Like life after SPM is very different. You have to be independent in exploring the things. You have to be independent in your own learning, not just for your A levels or for your pre-uni preparation, but also to grow as a person. So Bank Negara really appreciates its applicants that have a high interest in learning, that have high curiosity, and the ones that show that, oh, I'm willing to learn because I admit that I'm still young. I don't know a lot of things. So please like educate me, you know. All of those things are the characteristics that they look for. Because even after being awarded the scholarship, they would make sure to have a lot of scholars development program where they teach you a lot of things like how does the central bank work. They teach you coding and they provide like, English improvement classes. So I think that's a really great opportunity and it really portrays what they like and what they want to cultivate in an environment where they have scholars continuously learning even after getting into uni. And even in the employment world in the bank, it really encourages all of its employees. If you want to continue your masters, if you want to do your PhD, we can sponsor you. So yeah, if you want to apply to the bank, make sure that you portray yourself as someone who is like, oh yeah, I'm very interested in, growing as a person and learning about new stuff as I go along. And then just keep in mind that the bank doesn't expect you to be like super smart or like a super genius, because a lot of my friends, we are very different with each other. So I think the bank also looks for diversity. So just embrace what you like and don't be afraid to show them what you're passionate about. If you're passionate about like, gardening, but you want to do econs, it's fine because you can always correlate those two. And life is more than just your career, and the bank really appreciates that. So just for a short sharing session, if you guys want to know, one of my interviewers during the Bank Negara interview was Reza Minhad. And then after the interview, I researched into this guy and then I got to know that he doesn't only work as a central banker. He's also like a script writer and he's an actor also. So one of his famous films you can watch on Netflix is Kill. And I watched it and it was so good. It was like, oh my God, this guy interviewed me and then he's acting in this show. And I was like, okay. So just keep in mind that you still have a lot to learn. We're all young. Don't go into the interview being like, oh, I know a lot of things, blah, blah, blah. If you don't know something, just admit it. It's fine. They would be more than happy to educate you because, at the end, we're all learning.
Thank you, Izzati. We learned a lot about Bank Negara from there. How about Zuri? Can you share about Petronas?
Okay, so for Petronas, I'm really not sure in a personality kind of way, because they always tell you things like, there's no right answer, there's no wrong answer, but eventually there are people who get rejected after the EQ test. So to be safe, because I think I kind of passed the EQ test, or else I won't be getting the scholarship again. So I think to be safe is that you need to be honest. That's the first thing, because there are questions that will check out on your honesty. That's the most important thing, because you can't actually pretend to be that person that you are, but you're not. That's the first thing. And then the second thing is, to be safe, all scholarship body wants a leader, but at the same time, a good listener. So make sure, like for the question, like, would you help? this. Well, you say yes, strongly agree. Would you procrastinate? No, strongly disagree. I think that's the safe way to actually go through the EQ test. But really, just be yourself. If you're an introvert, just tell them you're introvert. If you're an extrovert, just tell them you're extrovert. I'm sure it's fine. So what is expected as a Petronas scholar is that the first one is to be a leader, or simply put, to have a leader potential. So they would want someone who actually would take the lead or be in charge when it matters the most. Because in the end, they're seeking to employ you in the future. They don't want someone who is just following their orders blindly without thinking what are the effects, what will be the best way to do it. That's the thing. So you need to take charge. If you have question, ask it. Even during the case study, if you have any doubt, ask them. It is a good way in showing that you are a good leader. At the same time, you're not shy of asking people's opinion. You're not shy of asking people whether it is a good thing or a bad thing to do. That is the first thing. And then the second thing is to be a hard worker, at the same time a smart worker. So they want someone who will actually, I want to say grind, grind for them, for their company. You will try your best to, make their company go far in the future. They want that kind of people. So be a hard worker, but at the same time, don't just do things blindly, as I said. You need to work smart, you need to find a way that's most efficient in solving the problem. They don't want you to be like, what we always call it, somewhere. You just do what they want you to do without asking question, without asking, oh, what will be the side effect of this thing? What, those kind of stuff. So really, be a hard worker and a smart worker, and I'm sure that you will just fine.
Thank you, Zuri. Your thoughts, Tia?
As a Khazanah, I think like one thing that they would value in a scholar is drive and ambition to make a difference, because the world is not like limited to just us. There's so many people out there with different circumstances and different hardships. So it's important to recognize that and to have the initiative to want to do something about it. So I think everyone has a different social cause that we're all passionate about. You might be interested in education, or in Izzati's case, she likes financial literacy. And maybe some people are more geared towards economic inequality, for example. So take some time to think about what change you want to make within your community, because they're investing in you in the hopes that you'll make positive change to the people around you. So for me, I had trouble figuring out what exactly I really want to make, in what area I specifically wanted to delve into, but it's okay if you're unsure, because it does take time for you to identify what that is, because we're constantly evolving also. So it's also normal if you find your interest to be changing in the future. But as long as you have the passion to improve conditions around you and to make a positive impact to those who need it, then I think that's something that they really appreciate in you and hope to see you materialize as you go into college and you enter uni, and hopefully you'll be able to carry out the promises of the changes you want to make in your essay that you wrote earlier in your application.
Thank you, Tia. And how about you, Meisha?
Right. So JPA is a bit more clean cut, especially during COVID times where there's not a lot of extracurricular activities. So meaning they don't expect much except good results and good disciplinary behavior, especially from my experience as a scholar thus far. So sometimes we misunderstand leaders as, CEOs or ministers who, boss people around or whatsoever. However, as a JPA scholar, I realized that includes a leader includes anybody who's able to spearhead the field that they're interested in and make a significant contribution. So I realized in the interview that my friends, my fellow, scholars, JPA scholars, they don't really mind if you're introverted or extroverted. I have a friend who's extremely shy, doesn't talk much, however, is very knowledgeable in the field that he's interested in, which is computer science. So when he talks about a CS, you can see that his eyes sparkle, and he's a very interesting person despite being very reserved. So GPA doesn't really look for somebody who's out there and whatsoever, but mainly looking for someone who is passionate about the field that you're interested in and can make significant contributions. And that practically means that you need to have good work ethic. So what I mean by that is it's quite subjective, good work ethic, because maybe for me, achieving what's my dreams or whatsoever needs me to become hardworking. But maybe for Zuri, he doesn't have to put that much effort. So it really is subjective depending on who you are as a person. But what I mean by good work ethic would mean having positive values, a skill set or practices that can help you achieve your goals consistently. And in this case, as a GPA scholar, it's achieving your results. Because you do realize that before you become a good leader or good worker, you first have to become a good student, because that entails self-leadership, being able to become independent and hardworking to achieve your own, sets of dreams. All right. Another thing that should be expected of you is, as has been mentioned a lot, is humility, especially when you move on into college life. Because I could say that a bit culture shocked coming to KY, where everyone is extremely smart, it's very competitive. So sometimes you might, self-doubt yourself. However, with humility, it not only teaches you that, you're a human being, it's fine to not be as good as someone in this field, but it also helps you realize that it's fine to ask help from other people, which, pushes you to improve yourself, motivates you to achieve, greatness and whatsoever, right? So yeah, expectations of becoming a JPA scholar or any other scholar would be, for me, good work ethic and humility, right?
Thank you, Meisha. And thank you, everyone. That has put things into a lot of perspectives. I hope that the students can really strategize for their scholarship applications now after listening to that. But now that we've covered personal statements, case studies, and interviews, how about we take a step back and actually listen to their personal journeys as scholars? How about we start with Zuri?
So currently, I'm studying at UOW Malaysia, KDU. I would say that it's more of a university life. You're on your own, basically. If you don't want to study, you don't study. If you want to study, well, up to you. It's really on your own. You can go out anytime you want. You can come back anytime you want also. It's really a different environment from what we have in school, because I came from a boarding school, and there it was really according to your schedule. At 8 you need to do this, at 10 you need to do this, but you want to wake up at 11, go on. My classes are, for example, on Wednesday I have only one class. It starts at 2, ends at 4. So really, you can wake up 11, you can wake up at 12, really doesn't matter. But in the end, it's your discipline, and you know what you need to do by yourself. And that's the most important part growing up, is be independent on your own. Make your life decisions and make sure your decision is actually the right one. I'm taking A-levels currently, just 3 subjects, accounts, econs, and also maths. Even though it is like 3 subjects, trust me, it is really hard, because A-level, the questions are different. Yeah, it's just different. So I'm planning to take accounting and finance in the UK. Aiming Warwick if I get, inshallah. Kalau tak, anywhere is fine. At least I fly. As long as I fly, sorry. I said that wrong. And yeah, most importantly is, I think as you go on, you will figure out what to do and how to do it in your life. And as long as you're happy, I think that is the most important thing.
Thank you, Zuri. How about you, Tia? How's your life as scholar?
Currently, I'm doing my A-levels also, but in Yayasan Lembah Beringin, which is basically in the middle of the jungle. I plan to pursue economics or public policy in the future. I haven't decided yet. But one thing that I appreciate about YK is that they're pretty flexible about your career choice. So if you have a change of heart during your college years, then they're willing to accommodate your change in interest. So yeah, super cool. And it gives me room to think about it better also. And in KY, there's so many scholars here, as Meisha has mentioned. So there's a super strong high achiever culture. It's an environment where everyone is really smart and really driven. And one thing that I appreciate about KY is how there are a lot of people who take initiative and like start interesting projects. So this inspires me to not be complacent with where I am now and to realize that I have so much to learn and so much areas in which I can challenge myself in. And it's something that I really think is formative and important as we grow up. But undeniably, the KY culture here can be crippling at times. It can get really difficult, especially at certain times of the year, especially during exam season. So I take 4 subjects: economics, accounting, history, and maths. Yeah, so the A-level syllabus is like rigorous, but I do feel that it does help me a lot in a lot of ways also. For example, history, it does help me to critically analyze sources, for example. Meisha, Mr. Wallace would be proud of us. Yeah, basically it's important also, like the academic skills that you gain from A-levels can also be applicable elsewhere, which is something that I really value. But yeah, it does get really tiring during exam seasons because everyone's standards like is really high, and you want to make sure that you're up there and up to par with other people as well. So I would say when you're in this kind of environment, do find a solid support structure and support system. Find friends that you can rely on and that can remind you to take care of yourself. But all in all, regardless of where you end up or which college you end up studying in, take it as a chance to develop yourself as an individual and to learn. I have this theory that blessings and hardships come in pairs. So for example, when you get a scholarship, yes, it definitely sounds nice in theory, but you have to acknowledge that it comes with a large responsibility and you have expectations that you will have to meet. So remember that comparing your journey to someone else's is unfair because it disregards that pairing. So let's say like your friend secures the scholarship that you've always wanted. You don't have to envy them because there are more scholarships that suit you better and suit your pace better, because at the end of the day, we'll be selected based on how we suit that scholarship body. So regardless of where you are, just do your best with what's available to you and continuously work towards improving yourself for the better.
Thank you, Tia. So if you don't know yet, Tia and Meisha actually both go to KYUM. So how about we have Meisha talk about her point of view about KYUM?
All right, thanks, May. Yeah, me and Tia are both in KYUM, both in the same econs and history class. Amazing, it's fun. So I actually can say that I generally enjoy being in KY, albeit quite stressful with the COVID situation and online learning. I could say that is the thing that I struggled most with because, some of the content you're learning is, you've just seen it for the first time, you're unfamiliar, and learning it through an unfamiliar medium like online, so difficult to ask your teacher questions. But it's okay, it's part of the challenge. So I'm hoping to pursue a degree in economics in the UK, hopefully aiming for Cambridge, taking 4 subjects, math, history, and econs. So about KY, the environment is, as Tia has mentioned, and as everyone in KY will mention, it's very competitive, it's very stressful. You're constantly reminded that, you have a certain grade you need to achieve. We have a system that keeps telling you that, your grades aren't up to par or whatsoever, and have a progress chart you have to look at every single day of your life. A bit stressful, but it is fun if you like to be challenged academically. And, if you want to be a good student and, a good leader, you should accept challenges, positively. Regarding A-levels, it is quite very demanding. There's a lot of content you may have to master in about 2 years. Then the questions can be challenging as well. It isn't like SPM. Seriously, it's nothing like SPM. There's no need for you to memorize anything because there's nothing in the book for you to memorize, right? It's more about your analytical thinking and whatsoever. And because of that, I would suggest anyone who's taking A-levels to pick subjects that you are truly passionate about, because the content is a lot and it is tiring. So make sure that you actually have fun while doing it. If not, you'll struggle burnout. And I bet university life will be somewhat like that. Life in KY is a bit more rigid, more like a boarding school kind of system. So we have like our jadwal can be quite packed by blocks. So usually for me and Tia, we haven't dropped any subjects yet. So we usually have all our subjects, not yet, hopefully never, but jangan drop, okay? Usually we have all our classes in that one day. So all my subjects every day go through, it can be tiring. So make sure that you have a good support system, as Tia has mentioned. Don't worry and don't be intimidated about college life, because the people here are amazing. They are very interesting. They're all very smart. So don't worry about not knowing anything. You can just ask the member sebelah your bilik, it's fine. And everyone's really open-minded, you know? Sometimes you might be maybe from your SBP culture or asrama culture, you know, it can be quite suffocating, but here it's great. Everyone is, you know, willing to listen to your opinions and not judge you, right? The academic support system, the teachers are okay, they're nice, and they know a lot as well. And I have a teacher who is willing to entertain maths questions at 2 o'clock in the morning. You see, that's how dedicated the staff in KY is. About my life as a JPA scholar, again, take this with a grain of salt. This is based on my experience. JPA is usually more chill than other scholars in that they don't really check up too often on their scholars, which can be a good and bad thing. Maybe if you don't like to be burdened by a lot of programs, don't worry, because we don't have any for now, right? So it really does show that JPA just wants you to focus on your studies, you know, get those A stars and then go fly somewhere, right? They also expect you to be really independent, because as I said, they don't really check up on you that often. So you have to reach out to them, or sometimes, you know, with bureaucracy, when you email somebody, you might not even get replied 2 weeks later. So you have to find your own means of staying mentally sane and having company whatsoever. So yeah.
Thank you, Meisha. Last but not the least, let's have Izzati. How's your life in KTJ?
Okay, so I go to KTJ. I'm taking 3 subjects, same like Zuri, accounting, econs, and math. And I'm also doing accounting and finance. I'm flying to the UK, and hopefully I can, you know, go into LSE or Warwick. And then yeah, I have a lot of free time here personally for me, because I only take 3 subjects. And then I used to take 4, but I already dropped 1 because I didn't like it. So I was like, okay, no, bye. Yeah. So, and then since I have a lot of free time here, I think one of the things that may, you know, happen to you is that you start slacking off, and then you start being unproductive, and then you start thinking like, oh, does it really matter? And the answer is yes, it matters a lot. So my advice would be, while you're still not in college, try cultivating healthy habits such as like good time planning, and then like try filling up your time with really good things that can help you grow, like reading books and all that. One of the things that I regretted not doing after SPM is, you know, just watching Netflix all day and not reading anything. So if I can turn back time, I would change that. And then, yeah, for information, Bank Negara is the only sponsorship body that sends to KTJ for now. So we don't really have a scholar environment where everyone's competitive with each other. We are competitive, but not to, you know, the KY extent lah. KTJ is also a boarding school environment. And in this sense, we're an international school. So we also go to school with 7-year-olds, because yeah, we have a lot of like kids going here. So, and we have bedtime also. So if you want to go to KTJ, keep in mind that you will have less stress, but you will be stressed out because you have to follow bedtimes, and you have to wear uniforms every day, and you have to follow like a really, really strict boarding school schedule. But all that aside, I think life is quite good in KTJ. I have a lot of time to discover who I want to be and learn a lot of other things. And then echoing what Meisha just said, scholarship bodies right now, they don't really expect a lot of things from you since we're in a pandemic. So there's not really a lot that you can do. But recently I joined quite a lot of programs. Like I joined NGOs promoting financial literacy. I joined online courses. I joined forums and all that. So I think if you have the time and the means to do so, try finding these types of program that you can join, so that you have something to talk about during the interview, and you can show that even after SPM, you are really, really interested in, you know, learning and pursuing your interests. So if you can't find any, just feel free to approach me, and I would be more than happy to help you, like to guide you through what you need to do to find these opportunities. And then Bank Negara, they don't really pressure us study-wise. they just set the conditions. So you have to get 3 A's, and then you have to get into one of the specific uni lists that we already provided for you. So we already have specific university lists. So it depends. Like for the previous year, they didn't include LSC for accounting and finance, but this year they did. So it's just like your luck lah. I mean, yeah, it depends on the bank. Flexibility wise, they don't really offer a lot of flexibility because they offer like a narrowed range of field of studies. So if you want to change from, say, doing economics to accounting and finance, I think that would be possible, but not really straying too far to like doing PPE or the like. So yeah, just try your best right now to adapt to the situation. I know we're in a pandemic, but if you have the time to do so, try filling it up with things that can help your application.
Thank you, Izzati, and thank you, everyone. I hope now that students can really see what it's like to be in your shoes. Now we're gonna move on to the Q&A session. Again, a friendly reminder, if you want to ask questions, you may do so in our comment section on our YouTube Live or even in the Zoom Q&A box. So we have a student here asking questions already. Sorry, students. So they have a question and a follow-up. How important are academic results when applying for scholarships? And if they are very, very important, how do you manage your time in school to achieve your academic goals while managing your other responsibilities such as high positions? Would anyone like to answer that?
I think I don't mind answering that.
All right.
Mainly because on the importance of academic results, I find that GPA, PPN, I'm specifically talking about Program Penaja and National, is quite rigid and strict on your academic requirements because they mainly require you to have straight 9A plus at least in certain subjects. So for GPA, if in order for you to apply for that, you have to have those results in itself. I'm not so sure about other scholarship bodies. I think that for other scholarship bodies, the moment you have reached the threshold, then they look past that. But I've heard that GPA isn't really the case because I've noticed that even in our interview performance doesn't necessarily, I find that it wasn't really as important for GPA. I'll just be completely truthful about that. But on the question of how do you manage our time back in high school? Is it me? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah. I'll just talk about from my perspective. Really, I manage good time management. I really like making timetables because I like my life organized into boxes, into graphs and whatsoever. So I made sure to have a proper and realistic and feasible timetable, which I could follow. Because sometimes in your head, you're like, oh, I'm going to do it. Then you don't. But then when you look at your timetable, then you like realize that, oh, dang it, I didn't do this or I'm slacking off. So looking at the timetable in itself not only helped manage my life, but also motivated me to achieve, my grades and keep on studying. Another thing that helped me was really avoiding unnecessary things. For example, like drama whatsoever, or being in toxic friend groups and whatsoever, because those things are mentally draining. You already have to balance so many different things. Having drama, being in fights with other people, really just take a lot of your mental energy, which could be used in studying advanced, So that's for me. I don't know what the other panelists think.
All right, thank you, Meisha. Let's move on to the next question. I think this is directed to Zuri. Hi, Abang Zuri. I want to know which schools does Petronas send their scholars to, and is A-levels the only program offered?
Okay, so actually Petronas send their scholars to a lot of places. For my previous seniors, there are Petronas scholars sent to KTJ. There are Petronas scholars sent to KYUM, obviously. So far, the institutions that I know are UW, KDU, KYUM, KTJ. I think that's probably it. And also, if you intend to pursue your engineering degree locally, they will send you to UTP. So yeah, it varies it depends on your courses actually, your courses and your country intended to of studying. So for me, I chose accounting to the UK. So they sent us, the accounting people, to either KY or KDU. I don't know how they chose, but there are some of my friends who went to KY. Then some of us who got sent to KDU. Yeah, but they also sent to Australia. Countries that they sent to Australia, UK, US. Yeah, I think that's the thing. Canada, yeah, Canada also. And for the courses, it really depends also. For the UK, obviously you need to do A levels for Petronas. For the US, you can do ADP or ADTP. For Australia, I think it's A levels. Yeah. So for my uni, it really just provide you with A levels. There's no other programs. So if you want to get into KDU, you have really not that much of a choice. You just need to do like A levels. But if you want to do something else, I would recommend there are places like Intact where they actually do ADTP. They also do SCCE. They also do A level. So yeah, it really depends on where you want to go and what you want to do. And for Petronas, I think it's quite diverse. But just a tip from me, if you really want Petronas, it is easier to get the scholarship if you are intending to pursue a degree in engineering. They give way more scholarships for that rather than accounting, economics, social sciences, because you know it's an oil and gas company, so they want engineers rather than accountants. So there are very limited places. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Zuri. So the next question is, in order to make yourself more knowledgeable before a particular interview, what websites do you suggest that they visit the most?
Like for me in particular, I didn't have a specific website that I go to because I think it's important to diversify your sources. So you can go on social media and you can go on to websites that offer like official news. You can also go to YouTube because YouTube has like really amazing videos explaining a lot of different concepts and a lot of different topics in very engaging manners as well. So I would say there are a lot of opportunities for you to equip yourself with knowledge, especially with a lot of things going online. As Izzati mentioned, do take some time to go for online forums or online webinars, like as you guys are doing right now. Just keep doing it and try to delve into specific topics. Let's say if you're interested about environmental awareness, then perhaps you can attend a talk about it online. And yeah, as long as you diversify your sources, I think that's where you can really like expand your knowledge in terms of varying perspectives, and that's what they would appreciate during your interview and also in your application essay as well.
Thank you, Tia. Now we have another question about on personal statements. Hi, scholars. Does style of writing play a part when writing personal statements?
So for that question, I think style of writing, it varies from person to person. To say that it matters, I don't know in what sense you describe like what style of writing you're asking about, but I would say that try to make it interesting. For me, I opened my essay with like a quote from Yoda from Star Wars. I wrote like do or do not, there is no try, something like that. And then I like proceeded with that. Try to find ways on the internet to write an essay and make it sound proper and interesting at the same way, like starting with quotes or like starting with a dialogue. I remember having a chat with Tia prior to this session, and then she told me that in her essay, she wrote about how she went out on trains and then like went out to KL via trains, and then she looked towards the city of Kuala Lumpur, and then there were like areas of it where it's very developed and then areas where it's not so developed, and then she related it like, oh, I observed that there was a quite huge socio-economic disparity in the situation. So I thought that was really, really interesting. and it was a really refreshing style of writing. So as much as you can, try to make it as unique as possible. But yeah, don't make it to sound too macam macam mana nak cakap, like too serabut nak baca, you know, but make it interesting.
Yeah, can I add on to that? Yeah. So for personal statements, I really feel that you don't need to like go out of your way to find something to talk about, because there are things to talk about within your life already. It's just a matter of whether like you notice it or whether you observe it. So what I was talking about in my essay was actually rides on the LRT, which I would say is a universal experience to most of us, right? So yeah, don't worry about having to go for an international competition for you to be able to come up with an interesting story, because those stories are already around you. You just have to find it.
All right, thank you. We have another question, which is a bit relatable to what Tia just mentioned about accomplishments and such. Will an applicant's chances of getting a scholarship be slim if he or she is not really active in extracurricular activities, example, winning competitions and volunteering activities? Perhaps any of you know a friend, because I'm sure all of you here are very active during high school, right?
I can take that question.
All right.
So, don't worry too much about like whether or not you were active in high school, because I think it's not too late to change. You still have time now to involve yourself in a lot of NGOs and such. Even for me during high school, I didn't have like big leadership positions. I was just, you know, the secretary for PRS, Pembinaan Sebaya, but that doesn't really control too much over your application. So if you think that you missed your chance to be active during high school, it's not too late to change that. Don't worry. You can do a lot of things now. But at the end of the day, don't focus too much like, oh, I didn't do, I'm not as active as other applicants, because scholarships look for way more than just like, oh, this applicant went to an international competition, this one didn't, so let's reject the one that didn't. They consider way more than what you put in your application form.
Can I add on that? I think it's important to note why they want you to be involved in extracurricular activities. It isn't really about, you know, having a really, really long resume. They mainly want you to join these kind of things so that you learn life lessons and skills. So there really isn't any point if you join so many things for the sake of getting a trophy, but you really don't add on to yourself personally. So that goes both ways, where I think it's better if you join one or two things, but it significantly and positively impacts you. So don't be too worried about what you've done, but be more focused on how did it affect you and how it shows, you know, your personality and whatsoever. So say that you've just been involved in debate, even just one thing, it's fine, you know, show how, you know, you learn teamwork, hard work and whatsoever. So that's more important than, you know, telling them, listing down everything, but have nothing to show for it, right? So don't be too worried about that.
All right. Thank you, Meisha. Moving on to the next question. This one is based on interviews. What happens if we get too immersed in our answers and start moving off topic? Should I proceed or stop talking instantly?
I think I can answer that one.
Okay.
I have been with interview with MNRP, which is a physical interview actually. It was the only physical interview that I got to go to before the pandemic situation. So during that interview, they were asking very weird questions, like because in that room, all three of us knew each other. So they were asking questions like, between awak tiga ni, siapa yang paling pemalas? Something like that. It's meant for you to put down others, and it really got weird and very off topic. I think there's this one guy who actually talked about how a co-curricular activity helped him. Eventually, he's talking all about scouts. And then the way you deal with that situation is that really do not stop talking instantly, but do not go on. Just say, I'm sorry, this might have been out of topic, so let's return to the main point. So just say that to the interviewers and they will understand. You don't have to like, oh, sorry, and then just keep quiet, because it won't do your point justice. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Zuri. Moving on, we have a few more questions, and I think we'll take just a few more before we close. This one is regarding ambition. Is it compulsory to have a certain ambition in mind during the interview? And if we don't, do you have any tips on how to be sure when choosing a course to pursue?
Can I take that one?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so ambition-wise, I also read some of the questions saying, like, should you focus on your passion or should you focus on majors that benefit you the most? And then there's this question also, so I'll just try to answer. Okay, so for me, personally, after SPM, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I come from science stream, so I took biology, chemistry, and physics, but now I'm doing accounting and finance. So basically what happened was that I sat down and then I researched like opportunities that would be present for me if I wanted to either pursue like something in finance sector, or like just pursue what I have always wanted to do since high school, which was like pursuing medicine. So after like further research, I found out that there's so much less opportunity for you to pursue medicine now than there were in the past. And then there's like a lot of scholarship opportunities if you want to pursue something in the finance industry. So I was like, okay, so different people, they have different points of view. But I came to the conclusion that above all else, I really want a scholarship. Okay, and then stemming from that, I decided that I'll just pursue a major that has a lot of scholarship opportunities, because I had like a plan that if I can secure a scholarship, then I can secure employment in the future. And that's the thing that matters to me the most above like passion. So I would say if you have a passion, that's fine, but also think of what you really, really want in life. Honestly, passion does not pay the bills. That's the truth. A lot of people have to divert from doing things that they love to things that actually benefit them, I would say. So yeah, just sit down and ask yourself, if you want to follow your passion, are you willing to go through the hardships? And if you are, then pursue with what you like. But if you're not like me, then decide with something that you think benefits you the most. So, yeah. Oh, and then the part where should you have an ambition in mind before the interview? A huge chunk of my interview involved the interviewer asking me like, oh, you did biology, why are you doing accounting and finance now? So I think you should be really, really clear about why you want to do that, beyond like it benefiting you or like it providing you with scholarship opportunities. Just be sure how it will serve you in life later on. So yeah.
Thank you, Izzati. I think this is the second last question. This person sent it twice. So since case studies requires us to work in groups, are we allowed to use such tools like interactive canvases and whiteboards that can help us engage with others and come up with points, since working online without mediums can be quite difficult?
So I think I'll answer that question. Okay. So, previously when we prepared for our case study, because in my school, we actually prepared for this, it is advisable that you use like pie charts, graphs, and everything to illustrate your points. But then after this pandemic, they will just conduct the case study on Microsoft Teams. So you really don't have that much tools to use. It's just you talking to them and presenting. Well, if you want to write it or draw it on your own and then just show on your screen, that's fine. But I don't think they will. I don't know. We never tried actually. We never tried. But they don't provide the mediums, and they didn't ask us to specifically use any mediums. But I think it's better that you use, although it might be a little bit time consuming. And as I understood from other candidates also last year, it's not more of a question where you need to provide graphs and everything, because it's more to a theoretical question. For example, for me, how would you redesign a metro station? Or other people, there are questions like, how does COVID impact the working force of Petronas? And what do you think we should do? We should cut off salaries, we should lay off some workers, those kind of questions. So it's really up to you, your creativity. But for me, if the question is more like technical question, use your graphs, use your Canva or anything, it's fine. It's actually more appropriate because it really helped to illustrate your point and make your points stronger. But if not, then it's fine to just stop, because really it's during a pandemic situation. So you can't really do much. And besides, they only provide the platform on Microsoft Teams. Well, who knows, this year they might change it, but that's how it was during my time. Yeah.
Thank you, Zuri. Now moving on to our final question. So a lot of them have asked about this in the comment section. It's on how did you actually get to know about your scholarship and where did you apply? I think a lot of students now, they're quite scared that they miss any, application deadlines and openings also. Maybe some of you can share about how you got to know about it and how you managed to keep up with all the updates.
Yeah, I think I can take this one.
Okay.
I think I was quite privileged because my school kind of had a few talks to expose students about scholarships, but I understand that that's not a privilege that all of us have. So shameless plug-in, but I'm part of this project called Base Initiative, and basically what we do is raise awareness on scholarships. We'll be updating on our social media in regards to scholarship deadlines, and also when some tips and also some guidance on what you should do during applications. And we also plan to have a webinar soon to further go into detail. So if you're interested to know more, do wait updates. But I would say keeping up to date, you can work together with your friends. Like we have a batch group, right, for our school. So share information with each other and always remind each other, oh, this deadline is coming up soon. This deadline is coming up next week. And I think it's also like working together with your friends to make sure that you don't miss out on these opportunities. And I think if you can like create a list and like a checklist where you can personally check, that can also make sure that you finish up all your applications on time as well. So for me, I got to know about Yayasan Khazanah. It was quite talked about in my school as like a scholarship that people should like try for. And I like the idea. I mean, not the idea, as in I've heard stories about Yayasan Khazanah Scholar, and I feel like that's the kind of character that I would like to emulate or learn from. Hence why I was super interested in Yayasan Khazanah, and I focus a lot. I channeled a lot of energy into making sure that my application could help me with that. And I would say keep asking for stories from your seniors. You can just message them on Instagram. And if you need help with specific things, you can also like ask them how they did during their interviews or their essays. So yeah, basically don't be afraid in reaching out for help and asking for input from people who have went through the process.
Can I add on to that? I think what helped me a lot was, I don't know whether it still exists. I think it still does. There's like Telegram groups that have scholarship Telegram groups. So they constantly update stuff, and then they even say like stuff that isn't written in the website. For example, like soalan bucu or something lah. I don't know how you can have a soalan bucu for an interview, but something like that. And what helped me was doing charts. I had an Excel sheet that wrote down all the scholarships I was applying for, their deadlines, whether or not they required a personal statement. So when the deadlines of those personal statements and whatsoever, and then I wrote a note whether there's, it's a group interview, it's an individual thing, anything extra I need to prepare on. So that really did help me like visualize everything, because sometimes you think that, oh, okay, the interview is on this date. Then after that, pejam cilik is like tomorrow, So I constantly looked at that kind of my sheet and reminded me and stayed organized. So I think I recommend you guys to do something like that.
Thank you, Meisha and Tia. All right, that's all the questions that we get to cover today. Sadly, we're going to have to say goodbye to our speakers soon. But before you go, let's get some last pointers and also words of advice from our speakers. Do you want to say anything, Zuri?
So my last advice is just try your best. And in the end, scholarship isn't everything, really. If you don't get a scholarship or you get a scholarship that's not what you want to do or your area intended of studying, really, it's fine. It's not the end of the world if you don't get scholarship. It doesn't determine whether you are, for example, bright or not, or you have that extra shine or whatever. It really depends on, as much as I would hate to say it, it really depends on luck in the end. So yeah, it isn't everything. I've seen many people succeed even without scholarships. So really, just try your best, and in the end, just do what you like in life. Follow your ambition, follow your passion, and in the end, that's what it is.
Thank you, Zuri. Any last words, Tia?
Yeah, I'd like to reiterate and remind everyone to not attach your self-worth to scholarships or which college you're in or which uni you're going for. Because I understand like during this period, it's very pressuring. You feel like you need to meet so many expectations, especially your own. But just remember that if anything, a closed door in one place opens up another door elsewhere, and that someone else's riziki doesn't take away from yours. So if you don't get something, it just means that your riziki is elsewhere. And it's really important to make sure that your center of gravity isn't anywhere outside of you. So I understand like some people, when they don't get their dream scholarship, it really impacts them heavily. But I think it's important to not let this bring you down. Just keep working towards improving yourself. And yeah, have faith in the knowledge that our efforts will always pay off in one way or another. Maybe not the way we expect it to or when we expect it to, but our efforts will always be worth it in the end. So just do your best in all that you pursue, and what's meant for you will always reach you.
Thank you, Tia, for all of your reminders. How about you, Izzati? Do you have anything that you want to add on or share?
Yeah, so for advices, life is more than scholarships, okay? And don't worry, even if you don't get scholarships during pre-uni, there are a lot of other scholarships that offer undergrad, offer masters, offer PhD. So it doesn't end here, don't worry. And most importantly, just be calm, be patient, and keep in mind that all of this scholarship process is just a gamble. It's a huge game of luck, and even if you don't get one, it doesn't mean that you did something wrong. Sometimes you're just not lucky, and you will be lucky down the road. What is right for you, what is written for you, will be for you in the future. Oh, and then I saw a question in the Q&A, like I accidentally pressed answer live instead of type answer, so I'll just answer. For Bank Negara scholarship, we can choose to use either English or Malay, but is it okay if we use both, or do we need to focus on one language? Okay, I would really like to highlight here that fluency in English is very important. So please work on that, and it's a really huge plus point. In cases like my friends getting scholarship when they spoke in Bahasa Melayu in interviews, that is fine also. Don't pressure yourself too much, but just keep in mind that if you can speak fluent English, that is a very good thing. And in interviews, try to stick to one language. I'm speaking in Bank Negara point of view, because you want to keep yourself professional and not like use bahasa pasar or bahasa rojak, like mixing things up. So just stick to one language that you feel the most comfortable using. Yeah, that's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Izzati. And lastly, Meisha, do you want to share anything?
Yeah, sure. I guess what I'm about to say echoes the same sentiments as the other panelists. Mainly, it's everything does happen for a reason. What Tia mentioned about not getting the scholarship that you wanted and how attaching your self-worth to that. I was one of those people, because especially with COVID and whatsoever, you're just in a state of confusion, delirium, you don't know what to do, and add on with all this disappointment. But again, like Zuri said, it's not the end of the world, and everything does happen for a reason. If you don't get a scholarship or you don't get the scholarship that you want, it's possibly a life lesson, or God's like saving you from something, a divine intervention. As dumb as it might sound, it's true actually. So all I can say is just try your best and grab any opportunity possible. Don't doubt yourself. That is most important, because if you don't believe in yourself, no one else is going to, right? And if nothing works out for you, I don't think nothing will work out for you. But if what you want doesn't work out for you, it means that it's not meant for you, like Tia said. And there are better things that are meant for you. And only in hindsight will you realize that, oh yeah, everything turned out and everything will turn out eventually, right? So don't be discouraged, keep working hard and continuously improve yourself, right? Stay safe, wear a mask, get vaccinated, that too. Right.
All right. Thank you, Meisha. And thank you, everyone. That's a wrap for today. A big thank you again to our delightful speakers for sharing your knowledge and for your time as well. I'm sure the students that are watching this and will be watching this on our YouTube will benefit a lot from the talk today. And thank you to everyone who joined us as well. If you haven't yet, do subscribe to Cemerlang's Telegram channel at t.me/cemerlang.org, or you can refer to the link pasted in the comment section in our YouTube live and our Zoom chat box. Do keep an eye out as well for our feedback form, because we really want to hear your voices and improve for our future informative forums like this. That's it. I hope everyone has a great lunch and enjoys the rest of the day. Bye. See you soon.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys.
Have a good weekend.